So hi everybody, and thanks for having me. Casey, I really appreciate the invitation. This is a wonderful opportunity. So how many of you are passionate about your business or even your career if you're not, everybody? That's great, isn't it? So I think all of us would agree that really getting out there and making a difference is what really matters in our hearts. We're not out here just to go and make a pile of money, right? Anybody here looking just to make a pile of money? It's a different talk, I want to know. So. No, that's a different talk. Okay, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about making a difference. So the thing I want to talk about is I'm going to tell you a little story. Janet has an idea. She wants to end world hunger. And you think, wow, that's a big project, right? How is that even doable? Well, she comes up with this crazy harebrained idea, which actually was something I kind of helped her consult about. And I'll tell you this is a fictitious story, but it's going to illustrate my point. So Janet goes to the United Nations and says, hey, Ban Ki-moon, I got a plan. Well, she doesn't really get all the way to Ban Ki-moon. She gets to the Secretary General of the United Nations Secretary, right, who promptly says, well, what's your plan? And she says, well, I have this $1 down plan. He says, please hold, and transfers it promptly down to the basement where a low-level functionary in the World Food Program takes her call. Well, she says, okay, well, at least I'm in the door at the UN. So what's this deal? So she talks about this $1 down. So what's the deal? She says, well, she says it's $1 down, and then the next month it's $2 and $4 and $8 and so on. And you know, I'm going to feed the world with this. And the guy thinks, well, okay, whatever. You know, it's like I'll put it on here. It's going to look good on my resume. I'm servicing another project, right? So he signs it up, and it manages to work its way into the 3-year budget plan for the entire United Nations. It's just a little minor line item, right? No big deal. Well, here's the funny thing about that. She really wants to make a difference. Nobody thinks that she's going to make any difference. Do you think she's going to make a difference? $1 down, is this going to make a difference and change the world? Who thinks it's going to matter? What's that? Oh, because I'm telling the story. Ah, okay, there must be a reason. Okay, I'll accept that as a good enough answer. But the truth is, here's the full plan. It's $1 down, twice that each month, 36 months to start. And then once you hit the 37th month, the same amount she gets on month 36, she'll use again year after year after year. Okay, we should be able to end world hunger with this, right? Nobody believes me. Except the reality is, and she's going to take a 1% founder salary. That's pretty modest. I think that's fair, right? So for seed money, it's $1. She gets a penny for a salary. Hard to eat for that first month. The first year, it's $4,095. She gets about $41 in her pocket, really also struggling. And she goes back and meets with Mahmoud, who is handling her in the World Food Program office, and he says, what's going on? You know, we gave you $4,000. What did you do with it? And she says, well, really not much. I mean, you know, it's only $4,000. I set up some infrastructure. Next year it'll be better. So next year comes along and, wow, she's got $16 million. $16 million. So she comes back to Mahmoud at the end of the year and he says, wow, you know, we gave you a bunch of money. What'd you do with it? Well, I set up infrastructure. And he says, well, you didn't feed any people. No, really not. I'm mostly focused on infrastructure. But next year is the year we're going to feed everybody. And he says, well, you know, I don't know, but I'm going to give you one more shot at this. So what do you think happened the next year? Anyone want to take a guess? How about, just pick a number. How much do you think? Nobody? Would this number surprise you? 68 billion, that's correct. $68 billion is the total for the third year. And that leaves her I'm just going to show you the numbers here and give you an idea of what's going on, how that all adds up. We see we started with the numbers are getting cut off on the screen. We started with the 16 million at the top and we wound up with 34 billion at the bottom. So it's a lot of money. This compounding, this growth really matters. So you can see here this and then she's going to have 34 billion every year to do it. And this is about what actually the United Nations estimates the cost to feed everybody in the world is. All the hungry people, not us. We're okay. We're not going to get a check. The moral of the story is that you can make money and make a difference. And I want to talk about this growth exercise. Now that's obviously a lot of growth. But actually, it's not a lot of growth if you think about your small business when you're starting out. You know, did you make more than $4,000 in your first year? Probably, right? A lot of people do. Some people not. But, you know, the possibility is there, isn't it? So when we talk about making money and making a difference, the two are not mutually incompatible. You couldn't feed the world on $1 down, or $4,000, or even 16 million. It's nothing to feed 870 million hungry people. It's just not enough. But you can make a big difference if you have growth. And that's what I want to talk about, is how you can help your business grow so that you can make more of a difference, not only in your lives, your family's lives, but in your customers' lives, and in the world at large, if that's what you're passionate about. So I want to talk about how we do that. So what's the difference between your business and the most successful businesses like Apple and Amazon? Now, it's not size. Apple started 2 guys in a garage, right? You know? So Microsoft, same thing. Bill Gates in his basement, you know, programming. Some of us might understand that way of living, right? The difference is strategy. They had a plan. They knew what they were doing. They had a vision. You know, nobody can really, whatever you may think about Steve Jobs as a person, he was an amazingly focused person. He knew where he wanted to go, what he wanted to do. He wanted to commoditize computers for everybody, so we all had them. Likewise for Bill Gates, he wanted to popularize the idea of a PC, and he did. So the key, though, is having the right strategy. Just having a strategy is great. That's better than no strategy at all, but the right strategy makes all the difference. That's why in my little story, the right strategy was coming in subtle, right? Nobody paid attention until it was already a little too late and they'd fed everybody in the world. And that's the same sort of situation with your business. How do you get in the door? How do you talk to your customers? How do you communicate in a way that is effective for your people? Now, think about this for a second. Everybody who buys what you sell wants or needs it. Does that make sense to you? Everybody? So if they want or need it, why don't they all buy from you? So the simple answer is there are barriers. And the barriers are between your customer and the customer satisfaction, which, as Casey already mentioned, is the only thing that you sell. How's that for an idea? It's true, right?
It is true.
You know, think about when you go shopping. What are you really looking for? Are you looking to spend your money? I mean, if you want to do that, you know, just pile it right there in the chair. I'll take it home with me. Nobody's looking for that. You're looking for a problem to be solved, a desire to be met. Even if it's entertainment, you want to be entertained, right? So it's the same for your customers, your business. And as business owners, we have a way of looking at things that's kind of turned around. We think about what we are doing. We're offering a great product. We're offering a great service. Why don't people buy it? We're not communicating from the customer's perspective. We're communicating from ours. Here, I have this for you. Take it. No, it's here. What problem can I solve for you? Can I help you? How can I be of service to you? And that's the way we sell in this day and age. You know, we can't do what we used to do. So what kind of barriers are we talking about? Well, many of them are in our customers' minds. Who are you? Can I trust you? Is it the right product for me? That sort of thing, right? We're familiar with those barriers. They're called objections when we talk about them in sales terms. We have to break those down. But a lot more of them are in your sales process, and they're the ones that we tend to be most blind towards, because those processes we've built up organically as we built our business. We figured out how to do something, it worked, so we did more of that, but we didn't ever have an opportunity, because we're busy business people, to sit down and actually figure out what would actually work for our customers best. What process would actually be most effective if we stopped and thought about it? And you know, here's a couple of barriers that are probably in your process. How do they know you exist? We're talking about marketing here, right? Did they find out about you? Did you come to a networking event? Did they see you in a newspaper? Were you online with a Google AdWords campaign? How did they come to learn about you? The sales process. Are you speaking their language? You know, I'm talking about passion and emotions. Is that resonating with all of you? It is, right? So you have to speak the right language for the right people at the right time. We didn't come in here and talk about how to get rich quick. You know, I don't know how to do that, but if I did, well, maybe I wouldn't be here. But if I would, I'd come here, we'd get an invitation, and we'll talk about how to make it happen. We'll all walk out rich. But I don't know how to do that. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about what matters to you, right? Because that's what matters to me. It's what matters to you, is having a passion-based business. And are you satisfying your customers, customer service? Because you really want your customers to come back. You want them to tell others I mean, it's a lot easier to sell to a customer you already sold to once than it is to go and find a new one. We all know how hard it is to find new customers. Isn't it a lot easier just to say, oh, hey, you know, we're having a special. Would you like to come and take another taste of what it is that we have to offer? So we want to make sure that we break down all of these barriers. And that's the big question. How do you break down the barriers and make it easier for your customers to buy what you sell? And that's what I want you to think about tonight as we go through the talk. I'm going to talk about a system I've got. It's a 7-step system here. This is the part of the whole modular marketing concept. And I'm going to teach you about a couple parts. We don't have enough time for me to go in depth in all 7 parts, but I'd be delighted to talk to you about all 7 after this. You'll learn what they are here, and we'll see where we go. So let's have a little fun. Let's talk about money. Who likes money? Nobody likes money? Really? You know, I find that's actually a problem, and it's one of the reasons I made this topic particularly for this group. And it's not exclusive to women, but I find it more prevalent in women because women, as a rule, tend to be more passion-based. And I'm going to show you some statistics to back that up. It's not just a sexist remark on my part. So,
we'll still have you back.
Huh?
We'll still have you back.
You will? Okay, thank you so much. But you know, we are passionate about things as you know, the type of people who care about their business, and we tend not to think of money as something that we really want. But if you think back to my first example, the story, money was critical to making that happen, and money is critical to making your business happen as well. It's all well and good to have a passion-based business, but there isn't any incompatibility between making money and making a difference. Does everybody agree with that? You do, right? So let's see what we need to do to make that happen. Step 1 is understanding who you are. What's the meaning? Why are you doing this? If you don't know why you're running your business, then that's going to go right into your business and it's going to be reflected. If you've ever sat down with somebody who was trying to hide their emotions, did you see right through them? You do, right? People carry their emotions on their face. You can tell they're upset. Maybe you don't know exactly what they're thinking, but you know something is wrong. That same sort of attitude gets reflected in your business, and it starts with who you are. So if you're inauthentic, you're talking about something that you don't care about. I don't know, you're in the widget business and you're not a widget kind of gal, you know, you're, you know, how many of you sell widgets, right? It doesn't sound exciting. It sounds like some boring manufacturing thing, and I heard what everybody does here, and it doesn't sound like you're widget makers. So, you know, you have to be passionate about what you do. That's number 1. So understanding yourself, it's really a little personal development exercise is the first thing you want to do. Now, assuming you got that down, I was going to talk a little bit about how I got passionate about it. So let me back up a second and I'll tell you how I got where I am and give you a little background of why I like to talk about this and why I talk about a passion-based business. And it's not just women, obviously, because I'm here doing it. Back in 1989, I took a round-the-world trip, and I spent several months trekking in the wilds of Nepal. And something really amazing happened. This is what it looked like there. I was a week away from the nearest roads, electricity, or indoor plumbing. And I found something that really surprised me, having grown up in the Washington, D.C. area. I found happy people like this woman up here. And you think, why are people happy? They don't have running water, they don't have electricity, they're a week away from the nearest road. They live, national average, $150 a year of income per capita. 5th poorest nation on earth. And yet the people were happy, and it wasn't poverty. I went to a lot of other places where people were poor and miserable. I mean, poverty is not a good thing. I don't recommend it. But they had enough food, and they had enough family, and they had an amazing, incredibly beautiful setting to live in. And they had what we would call a traditional lifestyle in a lot of ways. And that made a big difference for them, and they were happy. And I thought, well, what is it that's so special about these people that we don't have? And the answer took me 20 years to figure out, and it's so simple once you know. Happiness is when your life fulfills your needs. Pretty cool, huh? It's simple. So what are your needs? So that's where it got a little harder. I had to figure that out. And this is where it comes into play in your business as well. And I'm going to share with you what my top needs are in a moment. But this is also where it plays in for your customers. So the system I wound up developing, I'm going to talk about here in a moment, is based on human motivation theory. So how many of you know this guy highlighted in yellow? Anybody know who that is? Anybody? Everybody heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Anybody not heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Okay, so that's Abraham Maslow. And so Abraham Maslow came up with a human needs theory, but he wasn't the first one. There's a guy up here in the upper right-hand corner, this Plato dude. Anybody heard of Plato? So he sort of was kind of the grandfather of most of what we think of as personal development and personality psychology. But there's some more modern people as well. Richard Davidson, Martin Seligman. Martin Seligman is the former head of the American Psychological Association. He's into positive psychology. Richard Davidson studies monks. He puts them into functional MRI machines, scans their brains while they're meditating, and says, oh, that's cool, what's in there? And there's some pretty neat stuff. It's fascinating read if you're interested in that sort of thing. Both of these guys came up with amazing theories. So I took what they did, and it turned out they both had about 3/4 of the answer. When you combine them, and you combine them with what Maslow and some of his contemporaries did, and what Plato did, and many other sources like from the Bible, poetry, popular culture, Buddhism, Christianity, it doesn't matter. All of the sources, you wind up coming up with these 9 categories. The we promise needs. Well-being, which is here, mind-body connection, environment, the world around you. Pleasure, relationships, outlook, meaning, involvement, success, and elasticity, which is how well you handle adversity, which is one of the key things. I have to thank Richard Davidson for that one. I never think in negative terms, right? How many of you like to think in terms of the negative? Do you talk, let me ask you a question. When you talk to your customers, do you ever go negative with them? You ever say, look how terrible things are? You should. You should. Yep. You want to close business? You got to go negative. I'm going to share with you a story about that, and I'll tell you why. It's not because you're just a meanie and you want to make them upset. There's actually a good reason for it. And you're helping people by putting them in the right frame of mind if you can genuinely help them get out of it. Don't do it if you can't help them. Don't go, your life is terrible, but I can't help you, You're on your own, guys. Sorry. So when you take those categories and you start looking in a little more detail, those are kind of obviously high-level categories. We can look at more detail. I don't expect you to be able to read the screen here or copy it. If you would like a copy of this slide, contact me. I'll be happy to send it to you. These are the 58 happiness essentials. That's the shortest I was able to make this list. You could grow this to hundreds if you want to. The point about it is identifying what your customers' motivations are in each of these categories. Different businesses have different motivators. If you're in insurance, you're looking at a situation where people are more focused on security, right? Isn't that what's important to them? So they're looking at these some of these security needs here in environment. They're looking at legacy over here in success, things like that. They're looking to overcome and avoid some of the elasticity measures and things along those lines. If you're in the entertainment industry, you're looking more at the pleasure side. If you're in restaurants, again, healthy diet or tasty food or any number of possibilities here. Sorry, question? So I told you I would share with you what my top needs are so you get a sense of who I am. I built a product called the Happiness Planner based around this concept that I've shared with you. I didn't make any money at it, but I learned a ton. And one of the things I did learn is if you build it, they might not come. And if they do come, they might not give you any money. That was my big problem. They came, we did very well in some respects, but getting it to be a monetized product was problematic. Also, don't invent anything. Nobody knows what it is. They don't know to buy it. And you got to spend millions on advertising, and I didn't have that. So we didn't succeed with it, but we had a lot of fun doing it. So my top need is an opportunity to give to others. That's why I'm here today sharing with you and telling you what I know. Try and make that a little better for you. And I try to build my business around that. I think you guys are all in the same situation. You notice pleasant climate is up here. I like to live someplace nice. And this time of year, mid-February, I'm especially anxious for that pleasant climate. Best I can tell, you need 2 homes, and I can't afford that yet either. So, maybe I need one of Casey's cruises. Sense of accomplishing your goals and objectives, fit body, okay, maybe not. And ability to overcome fear. Well, I guess I'm doing pretty well on that. So, I'm not shaking too much up here, right? Now I want to talk about this in real-world application. One of my clients has a very high-end luxury product. We're talking about $1 million a piece retail product, okay, sold to consumers like yourselves. And that product, for their buyers, you can see their primary motivations are a sense of accomplishment. I've arrived, right? Fame, look at my cool toy, right? And quality, they build an amazing product, really is probably the best of its type in the entire world, and their customers buy that. But there are secondary motivations as well. It's an adventure-oriented product, they have that, it's beautiful, and the opportunities they get to explore with the product is beautiful. Security, it's safe, which is important. And then also it's something you do together with your spouse or partner mostly. So people who can afford $1 million retail product tend to be kids out of the house folks. Now, how many of you know Susan Wheatley, who runs Just Show Up? Yeah, quite a few of you. Okay, so Susan is also a pretty awesome person. She's a Melaleuca representative, independent representative, and she's been with Melaleuca for 24 years. And I sat down with Susan back in October, just when I was getting this business off the ground, and I said, let me just talk and let me hear about your business a little bit, and we'll work through things. She went through her sales process. Now, Melaleuca is a $2 billion a year company. They have very sophisticated, very well-tested, very competent marketing materials that are very well presented in Susan's more than capable hands. And yet, when Susan and I went through this process together, I found something very interesting, which was, we talked about not going negative before. Susan wasn't going negative. And she was actually doing her customers a disservice because she says, well, Melaleuca solves these problems for people. And I said, well, you didn't tell people that they have a problem. And think about the things that are going on in your life. I'm going to take you negative for a second, and I'm not going to get you back out of it, so don't go too far down. All right? But think about the things in your life that aren't really quite the way you want them to be, whether they're health issues, family issues, whatever it might be. It's important for you to identify what those are. We don't want to think about that stuff, right? None of us wants to think about the bad stuff. We're optimists, all of us, at heart, right? We're thinking positive thoughts, positive thoughts, positive thoughts. In Susan's case, there was a page that she went through her presentation. Everything's great, all sweetness and light, and how wonderful the product is and everything. You could do the same for Arbonne, I'm sure, and some of the other products that you've got here. And she gets to the page, and there's a list of health conditions on the page. And she says, if you have any of these health conditions, then, we can help you with that. And flip the page. And I said, stop right there. Because this is the place where you need to understand your customer's motivations. You need to go into what we call the pain page. We need to change what people are deleting. People are deleting all kinds of stuff. What do you not want to think about? There's a lot. You don't want to think about traffic. You don't want to think about the weather. You don't want to think about the fact that it's cold outside. And you don't want to think about all these health conditions that you might have or know somebody that you care about who has. So Susan understood as soon as I explained to her what was needing to be done. And this is what she had to say afterwards. She changed the way she was doing her presentation. And the fascinating thing was, just a couple months ago, or not even 2 months ago, a month and a half maybe, Susan reported her best quarter ever in 24 years. Now, I like to take a little credit for that, but only a little, thank you. But really the credit goes to Susan because she was the one that immediately took it on, took my suggestion, and was able to implement it really successfully and make it work for her business really, really well. So understanding your customer motivation and making sure you communicate to that motivation is key to the success of your business. So I want you to write this down. Everybody got a pen and paper? Anybody not? Okay, great. What motivates my customers? What motivates my customers? Now, I should have had you write down earlier. I'm gonna have you write down 2 other things while you're writing here. What are my customers' barriers? What are my customers' barriers? And the last question I'd like you to write down is, what barriers do I put in their way? Okay, everybody ready? Okay, so let's move on. So now we're going to have a fun little exercise here. I'm going to get everybody involved. Does everybody have a business card with them? Okay. Is everybody willing to share their business card with me at the end of this exercise? Okay, cool. All right. So take out a business card and keep your pen handy. We're going to do something fun. And this is where we talk about the messaging. How do you communicate with your customer? You know your motivation, you know their motivation, you know the meaning for your business, the motivation for your customer, but how do you talk to them? Okay, we're in a room full of women. This was an incredibly easy audience for me to think about how to message, right? This is super easy. Your customer base may be equally easy, it may be even easier because we have a variety of personality types in this room. You may have a more narrow set. Some of you have products that I know have a more narrow set. And we're going to talk about some of those possibilities. So personality typing is a really cool thing. And again, we come back to Plato, who is an originator of that. It was brought to more recent times with the Myers-Briggs. Everybody familiar with that? I happen to like somebody named David W. Keirsey, who is the kind of updater of Myers-Briggs. There's other systems out there, DISC and whatnot. I'm going to talk about in Keirsey terms, but it's applicable to Myers-Briggs as well. And we're going to do a little personality test. So let's have it. This is a 4-question personality test, not the 15-minute one that you're used to taking. So this will be a lot more fun and a little more fast and a little less accurate. So first question, do you gain more energy when you're alone or around other people? You gain energy being around alone or with other people. So write down either an I if you prefer to be alone or an E if you prefer to be with other people. And just go with your gut feeling. You know, what do you feel? You feel energized, you're a little drained after it. I'll be a little drained after this. I'm really an introvert, but I like to play an extrovert on television. So, okay, next question. Do you prefer to work hands-on or more with ideas? If you have, and I'm going to have you write down either an S for hands-on or an N if you're more with an ideas person. You might have guessed I'm an N. Anybody figure that one out? So. Definitely an ideas person. All right, next. Do you act more from logic or from feelings? More from the head, more from the heart. Write down either T for thinking or F for feeling. All right, everybody? Okay, and the last question. Do you prefer to make firm decisions or kind of keep your options open? Do you like to have a little flexibility in what it is that you do, or you like to really be decided? You make a plan, you're organized. Preference. Just pick a preference. There's no right or wrong answers here. Nothing's good, bad, indifferent. You know, those of us who are disorganized might prefer to be more organized. Those who are more organized might prefer to be more spontaneous, but write down what you actually are. So you want to write down a J if you're making firm decisions, or P if you like to keep your options open. How'd we do? Everybody got it? Anybody challenged here? You look stumped back there. You okay?
Number 2, which one was the S? And which
S
one
is
was the
hands-on. Hands-on. You prefer to be hands-on, or you work more with ideas and concepts? You got it? Okay. Great. Super. All right, so let's take a look at the 4 different personality types. Let's get a show of hands. That's probably going to be the easiest way to go around the room here. Who had an S and a J written down? An S and a J. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. An S and a J. An S and then a J. Be something S, something J. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Okay. Very good. All right. How many of you had an S and a P at the end? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Interesting. And how many people wrote down an N and an F? 1. Okay. How many people wrote down an N and a T? We're missing some people, aren't we? An N and a T? Anybody? No? Is that it? Maybe we're not missing anybody. No N's, huh? Interesting.
Well, Karen just walked in.
Well, we can't count Karen because she didn't do the exercise. Karen, you don't happen to know your personality type, do you?
No, I wish I was here earlier because I would have known.
Well, we'll come back to it afterwards, okay? So let me move forward, but bug me at the end if I haven't come back to it for you. Okay, so this is really interesting because Guardians are the largest group, and this is what those of you who wrote down the SJ, the first half of the audience here. You're cooperative, in other words, you like to work with other people. You're structured, you're organized, you're planned. This is really a key differentiator between you and the rest of the ladies in the room. You could be working from logic or from feelings. How many of you were F types? That's a only F. How many of you were Fs? How many Fs?
F is in Frank.
F is in Frank. Not too many Fs. Mostly Ts. Interesting. That's also interesting. So we'll talk about that. Religions tend to be traditional. I mean, there's no one size fits all, right? So if you're not in this category, don't feel bad or feel good or anything else. Just it's the way it normally is. You tend to be action oriented. and you tend to be oriented towards the past, tradition, things that are stable, known, reliable. Does that make sense? Okay. Warren Buffett, pretty good example of a guardian, and a very successful one, of course. So there is no good, bad, or indifferent to any of these personality types. Artisans, second most common type, but they tend to be individual. They like to be on their own, doing their own thing. Don't bug me, let me do my thing, right? Let's go out and have some fun. What are we doing now? That's the other cool thing about artisans. When everybody says, live in the moment. How many of you heard that phrase? Live in the moment. How many of you think it's a stupid idea? Yeah? Not so many? That's an artisan idea. Artisans are like, I'm living in the moment. What are you talking about? It's a no-brainer for them. Everybody else, we have to struggle. Like, let's try and live in the moment. Well, the artisan's like, I'm living in the moment. I'm done. Okay, thanks, guys. So that's a cool thing about them. They're also action-oriented, and they could be, Steven Spielberg's an example, and they could be either logic or feelings. My lovely wife, Isabella, over here, is our lone example of an idealist. They're very future-oriented, thinking about changing the world. The idealists are the ones that go to the United Nations and actually propose crazy ideas like this and get them done, okay? So Oprah Winfrey is a notable example. She's what's called an idealist teacher type. So she likes to educate people, right? That makes sense. Yep. They're very future-oriented. They also tend to be a little bit mystical sometimes. So if you're running into a little bit of mumbo-jumbo person, they seem very nice and very sweet. They might be an idealist, maybe. There's no guarantees with any of this. And last is the rational. This is my own type. Albert Einstein being an example, me not quite so smart. We tend to be more focused on logic, and again, we're individual, not cooperative like the idealists. So the point about all of this is that you need all types in order to make your business successful. You need all types, whether those are through advisors, through friends, through employees. You need all of the parts working together because everybody brings something different to the table. The guardians bring stability and structure. The artisans bring creativity and liveliness. They're fantastic salespeople very often. The idealists, they're the dreamers. They're like, well, couldn't we do it nicer and better? Couldn't we make this really an amazing thing if we just did this? And then the rationalists are like, no, we have to do X, Y, and Z, and P, D, and Q. Let me design a new system for that. Something like, I don't know, modular marketing. Here's the thing. Personality types are not distributed evenly throughout society. And I thought I'd share with you what this is to scale by the proportion in society overall. Guardians make up almost 50%. Artisans, it's actually 45, I think 47. Artisans are about 27%, something like that. Idealists, a much smaller number, down in the 15 range, and rationals are only down at 11%. So it's hard to find all those inventors. It's one of the reasons, we talk about how there aren't enough programmers and there's all this push now to make more programmers. What they're trying to do is convert guardians into rationals or artisans into rationals. They're not going to convert any idealists, I'm sure. It just is the wrong thing because it's logic and emotion. It's not people-oriented. So, no idealist wants to sit behind a computer all day and never talk to another human being. No rational wants to talk to another human being. Well, maybe there are a couple exceptions. Steve Jobs was a rational. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's a big difference between men and women, but there's not really a big difference in most respects. When you talk about the thinking versus feeling, however, that's where we're talking about a big difference. If you're talking about introvert, extrovert, it's about 50-50 in the population, same for women as it is for men. If you're talking the sensing, intuiting side of things, the guardian and artisan versus the idealist and the rational, you're talking about also the same kind of distribution, generally speaking, and whether it's planned or flexible, the JP dimension, also again the same. But you can see here on this graph, there's a huge difference when it comes to emotions versus logic, thinking versus feeling. This is, the men are from Mars and women are from Venus thing. It's right here. And this is from an enormous data set. This is taken from the Myers-Briggs data set. There are, I don't know how many tens or hundreds of millions of people that have been run through it. So it's not a small data set. It's not some statistical anomaly. It's a real thing. We talk about the difference between men and women. This boils down to a lot of it. So when you're communicating, this is kind of the whole point of the whole exercise, right? Is to understand your customer in a better way and be able to communicate across type. Now we have a very interesting scenario here because half of you are artisans and half of you are guardians. And so the exercise, and the reason I had you write on the card is what I want to do is I want to gather everybody's cards up. And this weekend I'm going to process them all and I'm going to send out to you an opposite. And I'd like you to schedule a meeting and talk about things with your opposite. And I'm going to take more dimensions than just the artisan guardian. I'll try to make it as opposite as I can within the limits of possibility here. So if everybody can kind of pass their card up around.
Supposed to write our personality type on it?
Yeah, right on the back of your card. Yep. Yeah, right on the back of your card.
Want the
Sorry, maybe I didn't
you
make that
want
clear.
the ESTP, right?
Yep, write the ESTP
You
or
want-
whatever.
you want-
Write your 4
she wants
letters.
Whatever your 4 letters were.
4 letters on the back of your card. And
He
just,
knows what your personality type will be from the
Are you
4
gonna do a
letters.
review on that? 'Cause
So he
I
wants
didn't
the
have
4
any.
letters. Okay.
you didn't have any of them?
I didn't have any none of the
Save it for later. I'm going to get you and, sorry, what was your name again? Karen, right. So you and Karen, we'll do at the end. We'll go back and redo the personality test. So not to worry. And the reason I want to do this exercise, I want you to have an opportunity to talk to somebody who's different from you. We like to talk to people who are like us, but I want you to understand what the differences are and talk about those differences so you can understand how to communicate with somebody different and hopefully be able to close more business with those types of people as well. Now, unfortunately, we don't have anybody who's really diametrically opposed. We don't have enough rational guardian or artisan idealist pairings, but we'll make the best of it, and I'll get some good stuff going on. All right, when we talk about women, what you might notice here, because of that thinking-feeling dimension, the rationals have become a much smaller piece of the pie, and the idealists went up as a result. So did a little bit of the guardians and artisans, but not quite as much. So it really matters who you're talking to, what kind of product you're selling, and how to communicate with them. The messaging matters, and the personality type matters. How many of you were feeling types? Not so many, right? Just a handful. So if I talk to you and I say, well, how do you feel about that? Is that easier for you to understand than if I say, well, what do you think about this? It is, right? It is. And that's an important part of what you say. If you're talking about this on your website, in your print materials, in the way you actually communicate in person, one-on-one, you want to use that feeling language if you're talking with feeling people, and that's your target audience. You want to use that thinking language if you're talking to thinking type people. What do you think? How about that, you know? Not how does it make you feel. Casey?
Also, people fall in the middle. I mean,
People fall in the middle, and there's no one right answer, and you're going to have people who are, sure.
I'm sorry, I changed, because I took one, I was totally different than I was 20 years ago.
That can happen. That absolutely can happen. And, yep. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to pick apart everybody's personality type here in the few minutes I have left, but, it's going to be, we're going to run really long otherwise. We'll be here till 9 o'clock. But, so I want to move on from that and talk a little bit about what I try to do is bring a little bit of balance, because one of the missing pieces in a lot of people's lives and business is the rational side. So I'm offering people an opportunity, and the thing I'd like to do is I'll pass around this clipboard for those of you who are interested. Let's start it over here. And what I'd like you to do is, if you are interested in finding out the customer motivations, doing that motivation map we looked at earlier, I'd like to sit down with you and do that. So please just put your name on the list if that's something you'd like to sign up to talk about. No charge. If I can help you with it, that'd be great. And we figure out who and what makes them tick. All right. I'm running a little short on time, so I'm going to breeze through this a little bit. Selling in 2016 is really different than it was in 1996. Who remembers these reader service cards? Everybody? Gone. Can't find one, right? Anybody seen one in a magazine? No. The beauty of this, though, is a really cool thing. Okay, the numbers are nothing magical here, I mean, unless you like playing bingo. But what was really cool is you got this bit of information here. Name, address, city, state, zip. Enter the digital era. What do you get on a website? Ooh, nothing. Anonymous visitors. And yet, back in 2006, we basically converted our old system to a new system. We took I circled a number, I sent it in, you mailed me a brochure, to here's your brochure. It seems more efficient, it's great as a consumer, but that's not how it is any longer. the web has completely superseded any form of paper marketing really like that. I'm not saying that print media is dead. I'm saying that you're not having the opportunity to connect with your customers in the same way. They're going to come through your website most likely, or through networking and other opportunities. So in 2016, now it's about connecting with your customer. That messaging that we were talking about earlier is absolutely critically important. Absolutely critically important. It is not an optional step. Your first salesperson, if it's not out at a reach out in a networking event like this, if somebody comes into your website, that's your first salesperson. That's the first salesperson, not digital brochure. That's a critical difference. Your website has one and only one purpose on the selling side, and that is to turn that person from anonymous to known, so you can begin a dialogue with them, right? If you're not talking to them, they're not buying from you. So I'll just quickly share here that I've had the Telephonics website up. I helped Telephonics deploy their website. Lisa Ahrens here actually did the design. She's a really smart woman. This is a $500 million a year company, 1,200 employees, been around for, I think it's 75 years now. And she did a great job with the website, and we really got that launched, and it was really successful for them. So I'm going to breeze right through this. Customer experience is what matters now. It's not social media marketing and video. That's not where people are spending their time and energy. You want to find out why, we can talk about that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but you should do it with a reason for everything. I help you get more customers, make them more satisfied, and help you make more money. And I'd like to talk to you about that after this, if that's something you're interested in doing. All right. Meaning plus money equals success. Change the world, feed all the hungry people, make your business successful, make yourselves happy, go on vacation more, whatever it is that you're passionate about. That's really the key, right? Meaning plus money. You can't do it without either one. Okay, I'm going to breeze through the remaining steps here. Everybody's familiar with a sales funnel? Anybody not familiar with that concept, sales funnel? Okay, great. So we're going to talk about models. How many of you think you have one sales funnel in your business? 2 sales funnels? Anybody know how many sales funnels they have?
Many as I've got customers.
As many as you have customers. Every customer is a different process. That's a problem in its own right? So maybe that's something we should talk about how to solve. I find that businesses, some of them are very simple. They have a direct-to-consumer model, and you only have one sales funnel that you actually need to work on. But a lot of businesses are more complicated. Magazine has both the distribution channels plus the advertisers, and of course us readers. If we don't read the magazine, nobody cares. There are other systems that are even more complex, such as this model with franchisors and a partnership and so forth. And it can get extremely complicated. The question is, which model is most important to you for your business right now to make it succeed more? And we want to look at that and start figuring it out. And that's where we get into the map. What's missing? Where are you losing money? What do you not have that you should have? This is an existing customer. We looked at that luxury retail product, and they really didn't have enough. Really old school in a lot of ways. So we sat down, went through the process, and I said, well, here's some possibilities for you. Whoa, a little overwhelming, huh? So instead of trying to do everything, which they couldn't, they're a small company, they're not big enough to be able to handle all of this, we figured out what the smart things were and picked out a few things highlighted in red, secondary ones in yellow, and those are the things that are being targeted for their business now. All right, I'm going to talk very briefly about marketing modules. It's the core of my business. It's getting into detail, but I'm going to wrap this up real quickly, and we'll get to a couple of questions and give you guys an opportunity to figure out your personality type while we're talking. So the last piece is customers come at every point in your buying process with a certain expectation in. It's your job to deliver. If at any point you don't, they're bouncing out. That's why your sales funnel leaks. We don't want leaky sales funnels. We want a pipeline with a filter at the top. You know, everybody comes in, money comes out the bottom. I like that. People who don't belong in your sales process, get rid of them because they're not going to buy anyhow. They're just wasting your time, and you're wasting theirs, right? So marketing modules, expectation in, you deliver, but then you have an opportunity to do a little piece of selling, what I call a transform, and set a new expectation out that logically connects to a matching expectation in, deliver, transform expectation out, and so forth on down the line. The cool part about this is we can do something really neat with it, which is metrics. We can measure the number of people who came in at every step and number of people who went out, And we know how we're performing at every point in our sales process. So we build the thing like a bunch of Lego blocks snapped together, and then we measure the results on the beginning and end of each block. And all of a sudden we have performance metrics for our sales process, and we can optimize our business, not by guessing, gee, I think this might be a good idea, let's try it. But actually by seeing, oh, we have a problem here, how might we solve it? So very quickly, just to prove that I'm not like just blowing smoke and I made all this stuff up yesterday in my basement. I don't have a basement, so it's not a problem. Customer of mine had 21 people out of 15,722 visitors contact them about purchasing something off of their website. How many of you are using a contact form on your website? Everybody? Nobody? You don't have a contact form? Nobody has a contact form? So those of you who don't, you're probably not losing much. So those of us who do, we have it there mostly for convenience, but the truth is it's not a high-performing part of our website. And they had an atrocious conversion rate of 0.13% from their website because they weren't doing anything else. You want to be here in the top 10. They're all the way down at the bottom end, below, like off the chart low. That happiness planner product I talked about, I told you I did pretty well with it, except we didn't make any money. But we did really well with the website. So we had a 13.41% conversion rate, puts us in the top 10%, maybe in the top 5. So pretty impressive. I can't guarantee that kind of performance for all of your websites, but you know, if that's something you'd like to look at, I'd love to talk to you about that as well. And here is our 7-step system. So if you'd like to get more satisfied customers buying more often, for more money, and making more of a difference in your lives, your family's lives, your customers' lives, and in the world, then I'd like to talk to you. My name's Ken Benjamin. My company is Modular Marketing, and thank you very much.